Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today I will be beating Dark Souls 3 with only the Crucifix of the Mad King. Now this weapon is very special because when you perform its special attack, it does one of three effects. Either Blessing, which is basically Perseverance, Roar, which is a massive AoE, and Vexation, which is a explosive sphere that can also damage yourself. You have to dodge it to not take damage. And so I figured the weapon seemed pretty interesting, so why not beat Dark Souls with it? Now to start it out, I didn't actually have proper stats to wield it. So I kind of just had to, I just kind of used it. I couldn't use the weapon art, obviously, because I just don't have the proper stats to wield it, but this wasn't too bad. It was just very, very long because of the fact that I was basically doing 17 damage a swing, which, yeah, it was very long. But the tutorial boss isn't super hard. And honestly, this is probably one of the longest fights in the run, just because of the fact I'm using a weapon I can't technically wield yet. I was also probably about to I didn't really have enough stats before fighting Vort because I just kind of ran there. I tried fighting him. I did 2 damage a hit without getting the proper stats to wield it, and so I just decided to farm souls because that would have been miserable trying to kill Vort while doing only 2 damage a swing. But as soon as I can properly wield this weapon and start getting it leveled up, it starts to do some pretty good damage. And also the weapon art is really powerful if you get the Roar and the Vexation, which those are the 2 that actually do damage. But other than that, the Blessing is fairly helpful, but if you're dodging it helps if you end up getting hit, but normally you want to be dodging the attacks anyway. And so, it's kind of helpful, but really not as helpful as the other 2 effects. But yeah, moving on. Now moving on to Vort, which, as you can see, I got minimum levels to actually use my weapon properly, and now I'm actually getting some pretty solid damage. I think in this fight is where I kind of figure out how to do the weapon art. You have to do LT and then follow it up with an RT. As you can see there, for a while I'm just kind of spamming the LT because I think that's it. Because I was wondering, I didn't really know how to trigger the weapon yet, so I was just trying to figure that out. Because I knew that it had the 3 effects, but yeah, it must have been next fight where I actually figure out how to use the weapon. But yeah, moving on. Now moving on to the Crystal Sage, which is a very annoying fight, in my opinion. It's just projectile spam the entire time. That's kind of the whole boss's gimmick, especially in second phase where it's just a bunch of clones that also shoot at you. It's really annoying. I don't know why they had to add... Well, I guess it would have been a little too easy otherwise, because as soon as you get close to me, just teleports. So having the clones adds some challenge, but it's just more annoying, because you can kind of figure out where he's going to end up anyway, based off of where he was, to an extent. But, if you're able to do that well enough, the fight really isn't that bad. It's mainly just when you accidentally start hitting a clone and then the rest of the guys just start shooting at you. That's when it gets pretty bad. But there really wasn't a whole lot not a whole lot to say about this fight. Just kind of annoying. Moving on. Now moving on to the Deacons, which is just not a fun fight, because you're dealing with just a horde of boring enemies that can stun lock you, and if you just get stun locked by them, it's over. But this is probably the first fight where I actually started utilizing the weapon art, especially because 2 of them being AoEs is really helpful for when you're fighting a mob of enemies. And so, yeah. But, I mean, really not much to say about the first phase, especially because I think the guys spawn usually around the outside. But second phase, they start to surround the main guy, but luckily, because I just have a bunch of AoE attacks, as long as I roll a 2 out of 3 on the RNG, I'm doing some pretty solid damage to the entire horde, which is pretty nice. But around this point, I ran out of mana, and so now it's just I've got to wail on him. But you can spam the LT part of the weapon art a lot, and it actually does a good amount of damage and a good amount of posture damage. So I kind of just spammed that to squeak out the rest of the fight. Now on to the Abyss Watchers. These guys aren't particularly challenging, especially because I'm using a very good weapon. I think the weapon art is a lot of fun on this weapon as well, which is kind of the whole reason why I did this challenge. As soon as I saw the weapon art was like a 1 in 3 for random effects to happen every time you do it, I was like, that's pretty interesting, and so I figured I'd do a run with it. It's a pretty solid weapon. It's from the Ring City DLC, which in one of these videos I really need to do the DLCs, but in some of my videos I've told you why I don't really like the Dark Souls 3 DLCs. It's just because all of the bosses leading up to Gale are pretty bad. Like, the Grave Tender Wolf and the other guy, that's a pretty annoying fight and not fun at all. Sister Freed is a good first and third phase. I just think the second phase is really annoying, just adding in another guy for a singular phase. I don't know why, I guess they just wanted spectacular bosses for the final DLC. But yeah, moving on. Now, as I was saying, after Sister Freed, which isn't an awful fight, you've got the Twin Princes, which in theory is a fun fight, where the second phase is dependent on which demon prince you kill first. But also, I just hate, it's just such of an annoying duo fight. I don't really know. It just doesn't, here's the thing. There are good duo fights, like Ornstein and Smo, where it really feels like they, complement each other the entire fight. The Demon Princes is you're literally just fighting 2 of the same enemy. It feels like a Bell Gargoyles, except they're just a lot more annoying. But yeah, moving on. But yeah, and then I honestly forgot about Half-Light Spear of the Church. That fight's just bad. It's not even it's hard or anything, it's just bad. I've really only played through the Dark Souls DLC, Dark Souls 3 DLC once, and that was just on my personal save file. And I mean, other than Sister Freed and Gale, the rest of the fights are just bad. I'm not even gonna lie, a lot of people glaze the DLCs. Most of the bosses, in my opinion at least, are not very great. I much rather play base game Dark Souls 3 than the DLC, just because the fights aren't very fun. But yeah, moving on. Now, I thought Aldrich would be a problem because, well, he does dark damage, so I felt like he'd be fairly resistant to dark damage, but luckily I was still able to do about 180 a swing if I hit the weak zone. Otherwise it would be closer to 90. But I mean, I really thought this fight was going to be worse. I don't really enjoy this fight because it's just straight magic spam, but I did manage to actually first try Aldrich, which is better than what I can say for some of the bosses in this run. But yeah, no, first phase was pretty uneventful. I think he only used his arrow attack once the entire time, and it was during the first phase, and I kind of just rolled the entire time because he was in the back corner, so I couldn't really get to where I needed to be in time. So I kind of just had to take that damage. And I think I did a pretty good job at also dodging the Life Hunt Scythe to stop him from healing. I don't think he hit me with that a single time. He did hit me with a few other attacks. He could have two-shot me there, which was actually kind of insane, because he took half my health off with one hit. But yeah, he went off fairly easily. Moving on. Now you all know how Yorm goes. I am not going to try to beat him with something that isn't his gimmick weapon, just because, you know, it would take forever, and it just wouldn't be fun. And so I just succumbed to the gimmick, and I used the Storm King, which, I mean, yeah, there really isn't a whole lot to say about this fight. It's really just me using the Storm King 5 times on him. I really feel like it's a shame that they didn't just make him a regular boss. Like, I almost feel like he could have easily been like a good boss if they just didn't have him have a gimmick weapon. Now, I had my game crash towards the end of... it only happened once. Towards the end of Lothric Castle, I ended up my computer crashed. I lost my dancer footage, so I do not have me killing that boss. But luckily, I have everybody else. It was just, I don't honestly know what happened there. Like, I did everything as normal, and it just crashed anyway. Which I guess that's just kind of how it is. But onto the actual Dragon Slayer fight. I think I once again stun-locked him out of his power-up phase, which means he doesn't actually end up doing any of the big heavy attacks the entire time. Which I think is kind of interesting, that I've actually managed to do that twice without even really trying to do it. So that was definitely pretty cool. But yeah, moving on. Now moving on to the Twin Princes, which isn't a particularly hard fight. It's honestly, once again, one of my favorite fights in Dark Souls 3. And here I tried to use the weapon art more, because I was kind of thinking back on it, and I was like, I feel like I haven't been using the weapon art much, and I've kind of just been using the weapon. And so I did try to, when there was gaps for me to do it, to use it, but the problem is there's usually never a big enough gap in any of the late game bosses for me to really do the whole thing, because I need to do like a heavy attack, and I need to do a follow-up where I just sit there, and I mean, I could end up just getting murdered while trying to do the second part. And so I kind of just have to hope that there's a big enough window for me to do that, for me to actually take advantage of the weapon. Because the weapon art is really cool. I think it's a cool concept that it's like random each time what it is. But I mean, yeah. It was definitely a little annoying trying to actually use the weapon. Luckily here, that was a good gap to use the weapon. And I got Vexation, which means I got a humongous chunk of damage off with it. And so that was definitely really nice to see, that I was able to use the power-up thing there. But then I basically get Lothric and Lori into the same health, and you just kill Lothric while he revives his brother. And that's that. But yeah, moving on. Now on to the final boss, Soul of Cinder. Now, again, I tried to use the weapon art as much as possible, because otherwise it's just a very good halberd. Um, but there aren't very many gaps for me to use it in without me just exchanging life for pulling it off. Um, but I did try to pop it a few times. I mean, that was probably the worst one, that Perseverance one. But yeah, no, I tried my best to use it. I feel like I got a lot of utilization during the magic phase, just because he's very open during that. But as soon as he's in any one of his other phases, I kind of just need to like back off and just kind of use regular attacks on him. And that's the same thing with the second phase. There isn't really a long enough gap for me to really do the ability without me just getting murdered. But yeah, on to second phase. It's nothing really too special. The weapon's got a good amount of reach, which makes it very good, just because I can keep my distance from the bosses while still, doing damage, of course. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of grabbing. I feel like half of the attacks he throws out in second phase is that grab and that kick, and then the rest of it's just all of his other moves. Because he grabs and kicks, at least this time around, I feel like he grabs and kicks quite a bit. Yeah, there we go. That's a kick and a grab. It's the classic, but yeah. But with that, I did manage to beat. Alright, I guess I did it a little early. I forgot that. I had to run around for a little bit. But yeah, no. There we go. With that, I did beat Dark Souls 3 with the Crucifix of the Mad King. The weapon was very good, but it was also really interesting, especially with the randomization of the weapon arts. Like, I felt like that was really interesting, and that added a lot of flavor to the fights I actually used it in. But unfortunately, the weapon art just is not very good because it leaves you open. But with that, I really hope you guys did enjoy watching the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.